Welcome to the Sourcing Industry Landscape Podcast, powered by SIG.org and hosted by Dawn Tiura.
Well, folks, welcome back to the podcast series. I am so excited today because I have in the studio Richard Waugh with Zycus, and we have an incredible story that we're going to be sharing with you. If you don't know Richard, you should know him. He's been in the industry for a long time. He has an extensive background in B2B e-commerce, going back to his early career at GE, where he helped launch GE's Trading Process Network, TPN, the first online marketplace for sourcing and procurement in the mid-90s. He was also co-founder of B2E Markets, one of the first SaaS, software as a service sourcing suite providers, and later covered the supply management market as an industry analyst for the Aberdeen Group. Since 2012, he's been instrumental in making Zycus the pioneer of cognitive procurement in his capacity as Vice President of Corporate Development. So, Richard, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Dawn. Great to be with you today.
So before we get started, Richard, I'm going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. And when we return, folks, you're going to hear from Richard Waugh.
Sourcing Industry Group, or SIG, is the premier global sourcing association and is widely known as a forum for providing thought leadership, networking, and training opportunities. Another central element of SIG is training. SIG is the parent organization for SIG University, which was founded on the ideals of elevating sourcing and risk professionals to deliver strategic value to their organizations and transform their careers. It was created at the request of SIG members who saw an educational training gap for today's workforce and offers one-of-a-kind certification and training programs for professionals seeking deep expertise in sourcing, governance, risk, intelligent automation, and more for themselves and for their teams. We perfected e-learning for adults before it was necessary. Our proven model for adult learners provides a flexible environment with online lessons, quizzes, and discussion forums moderated by expert faculty. Programs are offered in several different delivery models depending on you or your organization's need. Open cohort semesters start on average every 1.5 months, while closed cohorts for teams of 20 or more can start at any time. In addition, we also have self-paced or fast-track options. You can learn more about all of these offerings on the SIG website or by reaching out to one of our representatives. So make sure to take advantage of all that SIG has to offer for both members and non-members alike, because there really is something for everyone.
So, Richard, I have just come back from the Zycus event. By the way, you guys did an amazing job at your user conference this year. It was so great to see everyone in person. And we had a lot of conversation about GenAI. So can you talk a little bit and share with the audience about the transformative role of GenAI in procurement?
Yeah, happy to, Dawn. And we did focus an awful lot on GenAI during the Horizon conference. And, it's really, we're on the cusp of something that's really revolutionary. We think about where we are in sort of the time continuum here. We know we're, a quarter century into sort of the internet age and the information revolution that's brought about. And it's been already dramatic to this point in terms of, the ability for automation to drive productivity. But to this point, those have been incremental gains. I think what is so significant about the GenAI potential is really the potential for quantum gains. And we're going to talk today about, a new book, 10x Source-to-Pay with GenAI. So that 10x really gets at this notion of truly quantum improvement that's brought about by GenAI. So it's not about any longer, as I mentioned, those sort of incremental gains through automation of improving, making a process X% more efficient on an incremental basis. It's about removing those tasks altogether, in many cases with GenAI. So it's really an order of magnitude leap forward. We talk about 10x improvement. We're talking about 10x better user experience, 10x better ROI, 10x better sort of risk mitigation and overall operational efficiency. So that's what's so exciting.
So, Richard, the book, I don't have my copy handy right now, but people can get it by going to your website and downloading an e-copy?
Absolutely. Get a soft copy. We had actual old school hard copies at the Horizon event that you mentioned. Yeah, but most people these days prefer to get it digitally, and that's available. And I encourage everyone to pick it up, really, whether you're, an AI aficionado, enthusiast, expert, or a novice. I think it's really going to help you put into perspective what the transformative potential of GenAI will be for procurement.
Well, and speaking of that too, if they are really at the infant stage of learning about GenAI, your cognitive procurement course that you guys put together for SIG University is fantastic. And folks, it's only about an hour and a half, 2 hours of content, but it will really give you the basics about cognitive procurement, and it will help you. But then I will also encourage you to download the book, 10x Source to Pay with GenAI. So tell me a little bit then, if you could explain how GenAI is improving procurement by automating repetitive tasks and enabling strategic decision-making, that would be very helpful.
Sure, Donna. I think one way to put that into perspective is think about sort of the tasks or the roles that procurement can exit with the advent of GenAI and sort of what they enter into. And, in my mind, that this affords the ability for procurement to exit the business of sort of running a help desk, responding to, sort of random inquiries, help me, how do I do this? What do I do? And instead empowering end users to be self-sufficient. So you're removing that drudgery, that burden from the procurement of sort of, being totally reactive and doing that help desk kind of thing. And moreover, too often procurement has been in the role of being the data jockey, having to go and gather data from multiple different source systems and rationalize that data to just begin to try to make sense of it. Instead, leveraging the technology to serve up that information. So I become a data analyst, apply my insights and expertise to decision making instead of data gathering. And the other one, the one I think every procurement professional wants to get out of, the kind of exit of business, is being known as the policy police. Instead, how do we transition to being a valued advisor and trusted advisor? So let the technology guide users through policy and procedure. They don't even have to know that. The technology is smart enough to know what the applicable policy or procedure is, and let procurement really be that trusted business advisor instead. So I think that really brings home the idea of how the procurement role changes for the better with the advent of a technology like GenAI.
Yeah. And, and you guys have been talking about AI for, I would say, close to 10 years. Is that an exaggeration?
No, it's not. And, even if we go back to, a couple decades to when Zycus was first founded, with a flagship application and spend analytics, that initial offering leveraged AI to classify and categorize spend transactions, but it's certainly evolved significantly and really heated up in the last 5 to 10 years, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and so I have to applaud you, because you were talking about it when everyone said, "Oh no, it's not real," and you guys had some real examples of what you've built into your platform, like automating RFP generation, which is a godsend, spend analysis, supplier selection. So can you share a little bit about what you've done with your application that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about kind of again, AI is not new. The generative AI component is fairly new. So you can kind of contrast traditional, let's say, AI with generative AI. And oftentimes AI has been an effective tool in the past in terms of traditional AI in applying machine learning to understand historical data patterns, right? And really tell us what happened, but in that context, it's a sort of a rear view mirror perspective. It's historically what's happened. Let's interpret the data. What's new with Gen AI is the ability to create brand new content, not just relying on existing data. Mm-hmm. So it's what will happen or what should happen, as opposed to just that lens of what did happen in the past. And I think the other things that, with traditional AI, it relied on a programmatic user interface, which meant that I had to learn an application, understand how how to navigate that interface. What's different with generative AI? The ability to apply a conversational user interface. So I can use natural language queries and prompts without having to learn, a new application or understand the way that application, applies data. I think about it in terms of the way I think natural language and the way I would ask a question in a natural environment. And I think the other thing that's different between traditional AI and Gen AI is traditional AI was sort of limited to institutional knowledge, the data that existed within your enterprise for the most part. And with Gen AI, we've opened up universal knowledge. With large language models, you can interrogate and apply and learn from everything that's going on outside of your domain, not just limited to the four walls of your enterprise. So I think it's really a dramatic kind of seismic shift as we move from this traditional AI to the generative AI and combine those capabilities for maximum effect.
So you talk about large language model. If you could do me a favor, explain to our audience what that means.
Yeah. So by the way, one of the real valuable assets in this book is, in addition to having sort of a narrative that walks you through how user personas apply, AI and Gen AI in particular in real world contexts, and having lots of useful tools, checklists, matrices, and so on. There's a glossary in this book as well that really defines all these terms. So the large language models are these data sets that are used to train AI, right? So, and with something like OpenAI, you're bringing in sort of from the public domain this vast accumulated expertise and having an efficient way to glean from that data the insights that make sense to you. And I think what's powerful about the way the technology is being deployed as well is you're layering on top of those large language models your organization specific or industry specific data, and doing that in a secure way so that your insights are not then used to train some other public large language model. But really navigating the best of both worlds. So it's really, the large language model being this ability to create this reservoir of information that you then use to train your AI systems in how to retrieve and apply that data.
So if my organization, because I heard some conversation about this when I was at Zycus, your event, is that some people are creating their own large language or LLM, I guess, large language model for their company specifically. Is that what you're hearing too as a possible trend for some organizations?
Yeah, and really that's what we're doing. And it's really an important consideration when you think about how you want to apply Gen AI to your enterprise and your operation, because, think about OpenAI and the large language models. Well, it's a simple fact that if it's open to everyone, there's no true competitive advantage, right? So how do I leverage this to create competitive advantage for my business? So it's about having a multi-tiered architecture that layers on top of the large language model, the OpenAI, the public domain, your organization specific information. So for example, in using, the Zycus technology, your prompts and your completions, so the prompts being knowing the right question to ask, the data set, the language model, and the completion being the output that's returned. All of that remains unique to your instance of the application. So it's not used to then inform or train other public large language models. It's your own data. And I think that security aspect is really critical to organizations that are thinking about, how do I tap into this? There's sort of a groundswell out there of folks maybe not even knowing what they want, but I got to get me some some Gen AI, and there's Chat GPT. So in our personal lives, we've all experienced how powerful that can be. But now we're talking about in an enterprise application, how do I tap into the power of that public domain information, but keep what's private and secure, and as I said, be able to then create a competitive advantage from it. So that technical architecture is really critical.
Yeah, and I was fascinated to learn so much about that and about the prompts and everything else, because you've also got it trained so that it has less hallucination, and which is something that open AI, has. AI can hallucinate and make up things that don't actually exist. So it's very interesting on everything you guys have done to try and train it to get away from hallucinations.
Absolutely.
So can you tell me if they want to, or if a company wants to implement a Gen AI driven strategies, can you talk about how do you successfully adopt this within an organization?
Yeah, I think one of the keys, and it's a real value add, I think, from the book, is helping to walk you through a process to prioritize use cases. You don't want to boil the ocean. It's which specific use cases are going to give the maximum value, and sort of help you through those trade-offs between value versus, ease of implementation. How can I get there the fastest with the minimizing change management or security or other concerns? So I think it's really about first prioritizing the use case, because it could do so much. The potential is so vast. You could sort of bog down in paralysis by analysis of trying to think through all of the permutations. It's, how do I prioritize those use cases, and recognize too that it is possible to start small, create some quick wins, pilot those use cases before deploying across the enterprise, but do it quickly. And if it doesn't work, fail fast and move on to the next one. So I think those are key considerations. And again, I think they're valuable reference tools in the book, checklists, matrices, those kinds of things, to think through the process of evaluating those potential use cases.
Absolutely. So folks, I'm just going to give a quick plug for the book, because both the program that they developed within SIG University, but the book itself, it has real world applications in it. It has real world case studies where Gen AI has significantly improved efficiency and strategic outcomes. It talks about the future trends, because that's one thing Zycus is great about, is that they're always looking at what else is out there, what is next. And then it has actionable advice in it, on top of the fact that there is also where you can look up and learn about what all these words mean. But by tuning in to the book itself and downloading it, I can't encourage you more to take advantage of this free advice that you can get for your organization. And if you're even half as impressed as I was when I went to Zycus Horizons event, it's going to be mind-boggling to you to realize that it's here, it's now. This is not like we talked about blockchain and no one ever really figured out, or very few people have really figured out how it might apply. These are real actionable items that you can put into your organization today. So I can't talk enough about the book. So Richard, I just want to close with, why wouldn't someone do Gen AI within their organization?
There's always some inertia that just prevents change from happening. But I think, I think the reality is, I mentioned competitive advantage and differentiation. Those that aren't at least experimenting and piloting and figuring out how this is going to work are going to be left behind. That train has left the station. So I think you've got to overcome that inherent kind of inertia and recognize that this is going to change everything. And in fact, in the book, we've estimated that we think somewhere between 50 and 80% of the current work is going to be automated or eliminated, right? So that, and you can look at that one of two ways. That's a threat, or that's a potential boon. And I think the reality is it's that 50 to 80% of the current work that's drudgery, that isn't value add, that isn't
exactly
fulfilling, right? For those professionals. So it's going to free up people to apply their, experience and judgment and intuition and creativity, all those things that humans are so great at, the machines really couldn't duplicate. But I don't think we also don't want to sugarcoat. I don't think that, there will be some breakage. Some jobs will go away, but they're going to be the more clerical, transactional, and that's going to mean that it's going to be the future in procurement couldn't be brighter if you think about really being able to truly add value instead of being bogged down in those repetitive manual tasks.
Well, and I always say smart people don't want to do dumb work. And this is getting rid of the dumb work by either automating or eliminating it, freeing up your mind to do something strategic every time when you walk in. I mean, but if nothing else, that's how you attract and retain great employees, is give them an opportunity to use their mind for what they find exciting and different. So I can't agree more. So yeah, I think some of the tactical jobs might get eventually eliminated. And then, the truth is that GenAI only takes you 70% the way there. You still need the human. The human touch is still needed, and the human mind is still needed. So
yeah, we stress this idea of the human in the loop, right? And I think about the analog of, an airplane pilot. For most of that flight, it's on autopilot, right? But what are the critical times? It's takeoff and landing. And to bring that into, a procurement context, it's, initiating a project, let's say a category sourcing project, and making the award decision at the end. In between, a lot of those steps can be autopilot, and including something like you brought it up before, RFP generation. Well, if ChatGPT can help a student write a term paper, GenAI can help me draft an RFP or even draft a category strategy, but the human in the loop says, I'm still going to apply my judgment, review what the completion, the output of that GenAI prompt was, and fine tune it from there. But it's that human in the loop that's still critical, just like when it's time to land a plane.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks, this is Richard Waugh. And if you don't know him, you need to make sure he's part of your network. But Richard, I just want to thank you for your time today. This is fantastic.
Well, thanks so much, Dawn. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. And like I said, I can't tell you enough how much I enjoyed your event. It was fantastic. So thank you for that as well. So folks, Richard Waugh from Zycus, make sure you download the book. Make sure you go out to the Zycus.com website and get 10x source to pay with generative AI, unleashing GenAI's power in procurement. And so, folks, I hope you can join us again for a podcast very soon. Thank you. And Richard, have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too, Dawn.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast through iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Want to nominate yourself or someone else for an interview? Email us at podcast@sig.org.